Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am Ashtarothi, and I want to talk for a few minutes about assault frigates and assault ships. Now, these two ships classes have been targeted by CCP for getting a change, which I think is very, very good and long overdue. Just some brief history before we get into it. Assault frigates were one of the, depending on how you track it, one of the last ships to be rebalanced before they started tiericide, or maybe the first ships to be rebalanced once they started tiericide. I'm pretty sure it was the last before tiericide. Either way, assault frigates have gotten touched on in the past a little bit, but nothing remotely near making them useful. And as more and more options, such as the T3 destroyers, are brought in, the assault frigates have felt mostly muscled out of their position, because what do you do with a ship whose literally their definition is that they're good fighters? So the assault frigate and hacks have slightly different problems, because hacks are obviously not quite as maligned. The Ishtar and the Cerberus in particular are very well loved, although on the other hand there are definitely some good assault frigates that do see some use, or I've seen assault frigates get used, but I digress. What they suggested was a new module that will function like a super DCU. So it would have basic resistances as a DCU, and then you can activate it to make it so it gives you super high resistances for 20 seconds, and then they drop back down and they burn, or for a longer cooldown, like I think they said a minute or more. My immediate reaction to this is that this change is horrible. Like my problem with it was that even in the presentation they said, we wanted to try new thing, and then they come up with this, which in my opinion is just the same thing as we've done before. From a design point of view, I have a difficult time understanding the assault frigate rebalance as anything besides another burst tank. I compare this with frigates with ASBs, right? So an ASB basically has this concept that says, I'm going to rep so many hit points for this short period of time that you cannot break me. That it looks like I don't have a lot of hit points, and maybe if you could burst through, maybe you could do something, but it doesn't matter, because I can rep all my hit points for a short period of time. So basically you run me down and then it gets over and then you kill me. What we have here is effectively the same thing. The biggest difference is that ASB is intrinsic to each cycle, because you have so many charges. So as you make them have to use the charge, you get closer and closer, whereas with the assault frigates, or the assault changes, once you've triggered it, basically you're good for the next 20 seconds. So the optimal path would be to like punch them, force them to trigger their thing, and then swap off of them, maybe jam them, disrupt them, do whatever you need to do to take them out of the fight in a different way. But otherwise just ignore them, and then once their 20 seconds is over, just kind of finish them off or whatever. You can even keep them locked during that time if you want, and then just start a timer and then go back and finish them off. Now, as a fleet, could this be valuable? Maybe, I don't know. But ultimately, I feel like this is very similar to the kind of mechanics that we have before with these ideas of burst tanks. In addition, it actually stacks with other burst tanks, right? Because high resistances just makes high repping even better. So now what you'll end up with is oversized ASB Harpies, and everyone else is okay. But those guys are super good, because they get their burst tank from their ASBs, or oversized ASBs, and they get their burst tank from their additional resistances. But I don't feel that that's good gameplay. So let's talk about what I've thought about, and then I'm going to showcase something that my friend in FedUp brought up. So the two options that we've come up with as a solution. One is, I really like the DCU idea, but instead of extra resistances for like damage types, let's have it do EWAR resistances. EWAR resistances were something that were brought into the game during the Citadel's expansion, and it made it so that capitals didn't have to be immune to EWAR, but just could be super resistant to it. So what I recommend we do is we just bring that to a frigate level. And the reason why is because assault frigates assault things. When you assault things, you get up close and you punch them really hard, and you stay close to them. But the biggest problem with a lot of ships is that if you're deep and close, you get webbed and you get scrammed. So What I recommend is an unstoppable cracking nut that isn't based on damage, but rather based on their inability to be disrupted, right? And this will create an interesting dynamic in the fact that interceptors are relatively decent at killing assault frigates because they can kite them out. Assault frigates can kill EWAR frigates because EWAR frigates can't disrupt them, or they can like break their disruption and pound them. And EWAR frigates are really good at killing inties because inties don't have good EWAR resistances, and they are very vulnerable to being disrupted because of their propensity for range and their need to be fast, or whatever it is that the EWAR frigate ends up disrupting. And so that creates an interesting triangle that I think is really cool. And I think that that makes it a much better idea than just like, oh, I guess I'm not doing damage to this guy, switched primary, which I think is dumb. The other idea was we take the micro jump drive from the battleships and whatnot and just give it only to the assault frigates and possibly the assault cruisers. So that way, this goes under the idea that an assault is a fast attack, suddenly bam, on them. So maybe assault frigates should be able to make little jumps. Although I've thought about the fact that maybe it should be, instead of this 100k on jump with this big cooldown, maybe if it would be a smaller cooldown but a bigger blink. And this may even help with the EWAR problem, because maybe instead of EWAR, it's just they have the ability to both blink in and out, right? Whatever it is, I think that there's just so many cooler solutions for what to do with assault frigates than just giving them extra resistances. So I guess this is both a challenge to the CCP development team as well as some suggestions for some help. But please don't do this, because I just feel like this is only going to take the problem and make the parts of it that are a problem worse, and not actually make anything better or more interesting or exciting. Yep, so that's about it. Does it for me. That's my opinion of the assault ship changes. I really hope that they end up being good. This is just my concerns. So hopefully CCP will listen to this and we will get a good response. This has been Ashtarothi, and I will see you in space.